from their own region. Well, which you can understand that, but the seeding there is a procedure. It's not necessarily personal. It works out against the United States. If they were seeded in the top 8 in the world, which they could have been a few years ago when they were really riding high, then they would have played lesser teams. But when you seed them down below, they're playing good teams. Is that politics or is it just soccer madness the way it works out? That's hard to say. Politics comes in choosing where the next World Cup host is going to be. But then again, you can't be holding the World Cup in the same 6 to 8 countries that have all the great stadiums. You could put a World Cup into the United States with 6 months' notice. You could do that in Italy or Spain or England. But you can't do that. You got to move it around.
And try to grow the game as well. I mean,
well, absolutely.
I mean,
that's why they're putting it in Russia in 2018. It's a great nation. It's got money. It's got potential. And forgetting about the current events of whatever is happening today, Russia deserves to be in the mix as a host. And I'm sure they'll do fine. They're great people, and they'll do fine. Qatar is a different situation. Qatar doesn't have a soccer history. It doesn't have a good national. It's never been in the World Cup. It basically bought it, and now it turns out there's a lot of evidence that the man running the bid program for Qatar for 2022 was spreading lots of money around to delegates from the Caribbean, from Africa, guys who could sell their vote for, 6 figures or 5 figures or, who knows what. So that happened, and now Qatar, it's exposed. They have 120-degree heat during the summer. Gosh, the people from FIFA never bothered to figure that out before they allowed it to be a candidate. They're going to build air-conditioned stadiums. What's that all? That's craziness. But FIFA, being a morally corrupt, and looking at all the number of people who have been kicked out of FIFA in the last few years, it's also a legally corrupt organization. FIFA has been found out. Now, that's politics, but sometimes it's good politics to see a huge organization like that get found out.
We're talking with George Vecsey. He is the author of 8 World Cups, new book out on Times Books. And what was you talked about your first World Cup. How did you get chosen to do the World Cup?
Well, I went to the Times in 1982. I was a sports columnist, and I had just been named that. And I had seen the Cosmos play. I'd fallen in love with the sport, and I'd heard guys like Beckenbauer and Carlos Alberto and Giorgio Canaglia. They had all played in the World Cup. So there I am covering them over in New Jersey, and they're talking about the World Cup. And I said, I've seen a great documentary on it. I once was in Rome in 1970 with my kids, hearing people chant over a big victory in Mexico. And I proposed it to the editors of the Times, and being smart journalists that they are, they said, send the guy over there.
That's pretty good. And you became the World Cup guy, I guess.
Well, to some degree, I was known as that. But we had other people covering it. I mean, I covered. I had done a bunch of World Cups myself, but other people were with me. I mean, I was there. Laurie Mifflin covered a couple of times. Alex Yanis, my buddy. Jerry Longman. I mean, Jerry Longman knows a lot, and he's a great reporter. Sam Borden's over there now doing a good job. So, it's not, as you learn very quickly, you're saluting the uniform and not the man. So I did it for a while, and others do it now.
And you're not covering it this time, I guess, for the first time.
I wasn't invited. No, I took a buyout at the end of 2011, and now have my own website, georgevecsey.com. But the most important thing for me was to write this book, to get a sense of all the things that I experienced, not just the matches, but what it's like to be in a country, what it's like to be wandering around, take an apartment in Rome during the World Cup. My wife would go out during the day, and people in the neighborhood would say, Signora, you tell your husband nobody buys anything when they come to the World Cup. And so I was trying to get a sense of the broader feel of it, the crowds you'd see in the train stations. I tell about in 2002, my wife and I had a great hotel room at a Marriott in Seoul, South Korea. Just a fascinating place and a great room and great view. And she would wander around the city during the day. And I went to the train station one day to go to a match, and there's Costa Rican guys who normally don't like the United States, but now we're like neighbors who meet in a distant land. And they were going to their first match, and Chinese guys from Shanghai and Beijing, the yuppies of China with their nice clothes and their electronics, and they were going down to China's first match ever in the World Cup. And you really feel like you're in the center of the universe when you're in a train with Costa Ricans and Chinese, and everybody's having a good time. So that's the feeling I try and give.
George, there was one part of the book that I kind of saw the professor that you have quoted here, and I thought it was a really kind of wise, actually sagacious, I guess, thing that he said, that every 4 years of the World Cup is another era. And obviously you have players overlapping and players making their name for themselves during the World Cup, but it really is a distinct tournament every 4 years. And I just wanted you to maybe elaborate on that quote a little bit from Julio Vecsey, but just talk about that, how each World Cup is a separate event.
Oh, well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, 4 years is a lifetime in soccer. Somebody and give you a perfect example, and it's couldn't be more apt than Monday, that Landon Donovan 4 years ago was the king. He started for the United States, and he really built and then finished the goal that got them past Algeria. 4 years later, still playing regularly in Major League Soccer, he's not picked on the U.S. team. Now, that's a controversial decision, and I personally think the coach was wrong in not having him on the team, but it goes around. There are a lot of great players who were left off. So a player who's there, in fact, 4 years later, someone like Kaká of Brazil or Ronaldinho, and they're the stars of their nation, but they don't get picked. And then injury. Somebody misses because of an injury. That happens too. So you have to take each one as itself. That you hear that so-and-so was in a World Cup, but the question is, was he in his prime? Was he past his prime? Maradona was left off the team when he was 17 or 18. The coach Menotti didn't pick him and won the World Cup. 4 years later, there's young Maradona, still like 21, and I'm watching him in Barcelona get the daylights kicked out of him. I described that my first World Cup week, and seeing Claudio Gentile, or as I call him, non molto gentile, not very gentle at all, kicking the daylight. You could hear the kicks. I mean, you've played the sport,
yeah.
But can you imagine that in the 10th row of a really terrific media section, I could actually hear Gentile's boots on Maradona's shins.
That was like, who was it from Uruguay who kicked the Costa Rican player near the end of that match 2 days ago?
Yeah,
that was a hack. I mean, he got the red card for it, but
well, they deserve it. I'm sure he won't be playing in the second match. But you see all kinds of behavior. Guys lose it. I mean, I think I was there in 2006, and late in the match, it was a hot, humid final in the German Olympic Stadium, Berlin, and seeing Zidane, the great, cool Zidane of 1998, out there in the heat, the old man, 106 minutes or whatever it was, and he suddenly headbutts Materazzi for something the guy said, probably ugly, but
supposedly about his sister.
Well, it was your mama and your sister, by the way.
Yeah.
And the guy lost it. And who's to say any of us wouldn't? I've lost it for somebody gave me the wrong ticket for the Pressbox or the mix zone.
These things happen.
World Cup madness. I've had it myself once or twice.
This book also, to me, can maybe compare. I haven't read all your other books, but this book seems more personal to you. You mentioned your wife in it, things that you do while you're covering the games instead of just covering the games directly or the personalities. Was that part of the idea when you wrote it, that it was going to be a little more personal because you've actually played soccer and you know about it?
Yeah, it almost has a certain parts of it have a kind of a diary feel to it.
Well,
actually,
absolutely, and
we mean that in a good way.
I say I played soccer only as a footnote to how bad I was. I will tell this story. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I was given an award by the Soccer Hall of Fame. I'm not in the Soccer Hall of Fame, but it's an award they give, a media award every year, and I'm thrilled. I was honored. I got up there and I saw all these guys in the red jackets who were in it, Peter Vermes and Joe Max Moore, the newest guys, and I'm looking out and I'm saying, if any of you had ever seen me play defense for Jamaica High School in 1955, I would not be up here on this stage. So it certainly was. It was for showing up. It wasn't for playing the sport. But yeah, it's a personal diary because I felt the only way to do it was to personalize it. There are so many good books out. I mean, I list some of them in my bibliography. I rely on them. So many great books on soccer that to try and duplicate the history of it or the theory of it, the practicality of it. There's no point in that at all. I want to tell about the unique position I had of going to 8 of them and being a New York Times sports columnist, being allowed to write on a personal basis. And you probably know from reading me over the years that I would tend to throw myself into the column. It was good advice that I got from a sports editor, Joe Vecsey, who was a very, very good friend of mine, had given me great advice. He said, write in the first person. People want to hear your opinions. The old days of being coy and saying a fly on the wall would have seen blah, blah, blah. That's so anyway, I was used to writing first person. And the book, it seemed to me, had to be first person because I was there. I got to meet people. I was chasing Maradona on the phone and in person, actually standing out in front of his house in Naples one afternoon, hoping he would come out and give me an interview, and people calling in to say, Diego, come on out. So when you do that, there's no point in trying to say a fly on the wall would have stood outside Maradona's villa on the Posillipo Hill in Napoli. That was me.
George, can we take a break? Can you hang out for another segment?
I am right here. Thanks.
Okay, hold on. We're going to take a break. We're talking to George Vecsey, author of 8 World Cups, and we're going to talk about American soccer when we get back. Tune in to Thunder Road for...
The heart-stopping, pants-dropping, hard-rocking, earth-shocking, booty-shaking, love-making, Viagra-taking, history-making, legendary...
Join me, Kim Tracy, for the music of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band on Thunder Road, Thursdays at 11 p.m. and Sundays at 1 p.m. on 90.3 WHPC, and streaming at ncc.edu/WHPC.
Hi, we want to tell you about a program with real appeal. There is a high-quality, low-cost paralegal studies program right here at Nassau Community College.
It can be your major while earning your associate's degree.
Or taken as a certificate program if you already have a 2- or 4-year college degree.
It can be the start of your legal career or a great second career.
It is also a great credential in the business world.
Many of our paralegal graduates go on to 4-year colleges and even law school.
You can complete the certificate program in several months. Paralegals work in private law firms, government, and corporations on Long Island and New York City.
You can start in the summer, fall, and winter, attend full or part-time, days, nights, or weekends.
Our tuition is low, and the program is approved by the American Bar Association.
For more information, contact the Paralegal Program at 516-572-7774 or email us at paralegal@ncc.edu.
We're back here on From the Pressbox. I'm Rob Leonard with my co-host Tim Leonard, and we are talking with George Vecsey, New York Times sports writer and author of 8 World Cups. His memories of covering 8 World Cups. You know, it's not like it's called 7 World Cups. It's called 8 World Cups. So welcome back to our show, George.
I appreciate the time.
And before we start American soccer, there's a thing you wrote that I want to read and then I want to comment on. You're talking about why America, maybe hasn't embraced soccer the way it maybe should have been or could have been. You go, another theory was Americans need double-digit football scores and triple-digit basketball scores. Unless they can witness a series of acrobatic dunks with the scoreboard digitally rising like the national debt clock, then Americans lose interest. We like things big, like American restaurants doling out supersized portions, even if they bring on diabetes. By that logic, soccer is tofu and bean sprouts, and then in parentheses you go, I like tofu and bean sprouts. Very interesting comment about, there is a certain attitude towards soccer that a 0-0 game. Is that the way you say it, Tim?
Yes, 0-0.
By the way, my brother's been correcting me. Before I said division.
I'm sure he is. Actually,
Yes.
I don't say 0-0, but I it's fine, and my English friends do. I used to have a sports editor that I wanted to go up behind him and go 0-0 because he hated all those English phrases.
Well, I have a lot of friends in the UK who get on my case every time I say the word shutout. So it's always it's clean sheet.
Clean sheet. That sounds vaguely. You don't want to go there. But.
Yeah.
I do have a theory on why soccer in America, and I've told this to my brother, and having you on the show allows me to spout it out. And don't be offended. Like, my brother is cringing right now.
He is.
My theory about soccer, having played it, is that American. You're right. Americans like the big score, but we're more offensive minded. We have not, in Europe and other places, there have been wars. So to prevent your